Does the 2020 baseline iMac 5K with an eGPU improve performance, or is it worth it to use at all if, let's say, you've already got one lying around? Well, the answer isn't quite so simple. What's up guys, Miles here at 9 to 5 Mac, and I've been doing some thorough testing with this baseline 2020 5K iMac, really trying to determine who should be going after this model, specifically those of you who are into graphically intensive tasks like video and photo editing. So out of sheer curiosity, I hooked up my Razer Core X eGPU up to my iMac. Inside of my Razer Core X, I've got an MSI Radeon 5700 XT 8GB graphics card. And I simply wanted to see if there would be any benefit or difference at all as far as performance, because we've seen before, in some cases when comparing an eGPU setup to, let's say, an integrated Radeon graphics card in a MacBook or something like that, sometimes the integrated Radeon card can outperform an eGPU setup depending on the workload and which cards you're talking about. But inside here we've got the 5700 XT, that's pretty much AMD's flagship card, and we're putting that against the 5300 4GB card inside the current iMac. So I decided to do various different exporting tests in Final Cut, and I exported the same project with each GPU, so here are the results. So these results aren't the most consistent, or as consistent as I hoped for at least, but I have to say there are some definitive differences between these two setups. Firstly, I'd say that exporting projects with an eGPU is definitely going to allow for smoother general performance. I'd have to say, whenever I'd export a project using the internal GPU on the iMac, the 5300, it'd nearly choke up the machine completely to the point where I couldn't really use it for basic stuff like web browsing or just watching a YouTube video while the project exports, which is something I normally do. My assumption is that it's just a VRAM or RAM issue as far as, having 8GB in the 5700 XT versus 4 in the iMac, but I have to say the general difference in smoothness while exporting projects is literally night and day, and it's still a noticeable benefit in having the eGPU nevertheless. Overall, I can say I'd prefer exporting with the eGPU for projects compared to the internal graphics card. For certain rendering tasks, and I'm mostly talking about a lot of 4K video, the eGPU and the 5300 are going to be neck and neck a lot of the time, but I will say for working with higher resolution, for example, EOS R5 8K footage, the eGPU setup was noticeably faster and smoother, handle the footage a lot better. So I'd say generally speaking, the eGPU isn't going to be a night and day difference for just basic 4K video editing, but if you're working with more complex timelines, working with projects with a bunch of effects and transitions and stuff like that, heavy color grades, that kind of stuff, the eGPU is going to outshine the internal graphics card. Another thing I can say for sure is that for most people, going with a setup like this isn't going to make much sense at all, because if you opt for the i7 variant of the iMac, you can upgrade the GPU to the highest end 5700 XT for less than the cost of this eGPU setup. The Razer Core X is $299 and the GPU is around $420. That's basically $700, which was ridiculous to do versus just paying the $500 upgrade for the 16GB 5700 XT built into the machine. But the problem is that while you may want that $500 5700 XT upgrade, you may not need the i7 processor or the extra storage, because Apple only lets you upgrade the GPU when you opt for the i7 $2300 model. It's such an Apple move. But in any case, this could be a lot of people as far as this scenario, because the i7 baseline processor performs very well for the money, and so you may not need the i7 for the stuff you're doing. Maybe you just want the better graphics. So if you do the math, if you get the baseline $1,800 iMac model and spend another extra $700 on the pretty much the exact same eGPU setup, you're looking at around $2,500 which compared to $2,800 if you get the i7 5700 XT model, that's a $300 difference. Now, whether that $300 savings is worth it, that's kind of up to you at the end of the day, but hey, I figured I'd just throw that out there. I will say this though, if you already have an eGPU setup on hand like I did, then it may not be worth it to opt for the higher end iMac model. If you're chilling with the i5 processor, which for a lot of people that should be enough, you could perhaps just spend, another $400 on upgrading the GPU you have inside of the eGPU enclosure you already have. That could be an option, a feasible one too. So that's going to be about it for this one. If you enjoyed, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you're interested in checking out the Razer Core X or the GPU, links for that will be in the description down below. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe for future content like this, and I'll talk to you in the next one.